My name is Corey Burris, and I'm from Orange, Texas. And um, you want to know what changed my perspective? As
Yeah.
in, uh, well, what made me not want to kill myself was Jesus. And it's to me, my perspective on it, it's all spiritual. It's I went through it. And the thoughts that I were having, and it, I don't know, just it was just those weren't my thoughts. I mean, there's no way that anybody would think the way that I was thinking, and it'd be normal, and it'd be
What
the wrong.
types of things were going on in your life at the time that you made the decision?
The things that were going on in my life. My dad was he was mentally abusive. He was
Mm.
a little bit physical, but not like hitting me. He never hit me. He would he would punish me in odd ways. He would make me kneel on uncooked rice, or he would one time he made me take a bath in a 55-gallon drum in the backyard. We didn't have a privacy fence, and it was just different things like that. And he was in the National Guard, so I think a lot of it came from the military. Like
Mm.
you, 6 inches, you know what that is?
No.
You lay on the ground like this, and you pick your feet up 6 inches, and you keep them there, and it burns your stomach, and it's like a calisthenics drill, but he
Wow.
just keep you there, and he would do things like that. And he would make me sit up against the wall like there's a chair there, but with my back up against the wall and my legs, but there wouldn't be a chair. I'd have to, and it would burn your legs. And one of the favorite things to do was he would like get me in the kitchen or the dining room, whatever. And he would, if he wanted, he thought I was lying about something, or he was trying to get information or whatever, he would put a mark about 4 inches above my nose with a pencil on the wall, and he would make me put my nose on the mark. And he would sit behind me with a belt. And when I went below the mark, he would hit me with a belt until I got back up
Mm.
and probably
Goodness.
no. Just things like that. And it was just that started probably when I was about 13, probably. Before that he was just I mean, he was in the home, but like I played sports and stuff, and he wasn't there a lot. He was there sometimes, but and my brother, he played sports too, but we were always at his games, because my mom coached my teams and he coached my brother's teams, but we were always at his stuff. But it's just, I don't know. He showed partiality to my brother really bad.
Oh.
Which, hey, is what it is, whatever. I was a rowdy child. I had ADHD, and my brother didn't. He didn't do anything wrong, but and that's no fault of his. He was a good kid, whatever. But I bounced around a lot, and
It wasn't your fault. A lot of kids have it, but often it's misunderstood. It's not recognized as a disorder, and it's it, interpreted as a defiance, right? When it's not that at all.
And this is in the early '80s. I was born in '76, so all through the years. And I don't know, it just uh, I didn't understand. I didn't know what it was. I noticed it. And when I was probably about 11, I guess I was around 11. My grandma on my mom's side, she Thanksgiving or some get together. Anyway, me and my brother and my cousins were there, and all playing outside. And my dad had been there. He left, whatever. And I went inside to get something to drink, and there was like a wall. I had to go around the corner. Anyway, I heard them talking about me and my dad say it, and I stopped short of the door and just listened, and I heard him say that I was a mistake in his eyes, in my father's eyes, So, and then things I started putting things together a little bit, and it just it started making sense, and things continued and continued, and then he started punishing me, like he did. And just
So how old were you when the punishment started?
uh oh, I got punished all the whole time, but it's just the meal on the rice and all that stuff probably when I was 13, 12, 13, somewhere around there. And
And your mom was aware? Your
well,
mom?
they fought all the time about me. She was always on my side, and she worked a lot. She's an RN, but yeah, she always had my back, and so yeah, that was one of the main reasons they fought all the time, just because over me and stuff. I remember like I can't remember what grade it was. I think I was going to sixth grade, and uh, my dad went and bought my brother all kind of clothes from the mall, to start school. And he went to Walmart to go buy me some clothes for school. And back then, you didn't buy clothes from Walmart to go to school. I mean, now that's all I wear. Hey, this is Walmart. I don't care. It's different. But
Mhm, mhm.
anyway, they got in a huge fight about that, and he ended up buying me clothes from the mall. But it's what wasn't his idea. You know, it's just little things like that you know that, that stay with somebody.
Of course. Yeah, it was so unfair, such unfair treatment. So how old were you when you made the suicide attempt, and what was the final straw that that influenced you to attempt suicide?
Well, I was 17 years old when I did it, but I got to go back a year before that. Uh, my best friend died from suicide, and we were at school, me and him and another friend of mine, uh, and we were gonna go to this party after school. It's Friday night, and everybody's going to this party. Well, we all made a plan to go home and take a shower, and we'll meet back up and go to this party. And I had a truck. I was 16, so I was gonna pick him up. Where anyway, we went home, we took showers, and one of my buddies called me. He said, "We're not going to the party." I'm like, "Why not? It's Friday night. Everybody's gonna be there." He's like, "Well, the other friend," he said he shot himself. And I'm like, "What? Is he okay?" I said, "Did he shoot himself in the foot? What's going on?" Because we go hunting all the time. We're out in the woods, and we all had guns. Anyway, he said no, he shot himself in the head. He's dead. And I'm like, I just sank, and it's crazy because I'm living in the same house with my mom after my divorce, and I was standing like a foot away from where I'm sitting right now. Anyway, I was devastated. So I called my buddy, a different guy, and told him about it. And he came and picked me up, and I went to his house, and when I got there, there's ambulances and cops, everywhere, and I live in a small town. The ambulance driver was actually the other guy that was going to the party with us. It was his stepdad, and they live like 4 houses down from, this guy, and uh, so it was bad for everybody. But I went to
Did
the
it come
house.
as was it a complete surprise, or were there any indications that he was suicidal before?
Absolutely not, man. This kid had it made. He had a cheerleader girlfriend. His dad made all kind of money. He had an in-ground pool. He had a half pipe skateboard ramp in his backyard. I mean, four wheelers. I mean, you name it. He had every material possession you could want. And but that doesn't make you happy. But but he didn't show any signs of anything, and me and him were like inseparable. And it was just still to this day, I have no clue why. Just you know, but um, so I
What
walked up.
was the impact on your life having had such a huge loss? How did it affect you?
Oh, it affected me in a bad way. But I walked up to the house and there was a cop standing in front of the doorway, and he told me I couldn't go in the house. And I told him, I said, "Well, I'm going in there anyway." And he actually like moved so I could get in the house. And I went in the house, and my buddy wasn't there anymore. But the aftermath was, and it was just I can't unsee what I saw, but everybody in the town was just like rocked, nothing ever happened like that around here. Is unheard of. Anyway, everybody tried to do the best they could. Um, when the funeral came, it was like standing room only in the parking lot. I mean, just there was so many people. The funeral procession was like 5 miles long. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable.
So it's always such a tragedy when something like that happens. So was that a factor in your decision to attempt suicide or
Well, it gave me the idea. It gave me a reservation. I didn't think about it then. I didn't think about it all year. But and it was tough. Everybody had to try to just try to go on like it didn't happen. And but it did. And there's the whole school was just had a heaviness on it. Just like a blanket. But I don't know. We everybody they did the best they could. And uh, I did too. My home life didn't change a whole lot. It was still the same thing. But and
so
then around,
the abuse was continuing around this time?
I mean, I would do stuff, but it didn't warrant what I was getting in trouble for. You know what I mean? The punishment didn't warrant the offense. But so I mean, I'm not innocent. but yeah, I just tried to continue, and then around December of that year, that was January the 8th when he took his life. So the next December, I uh I was out with some buddies of mine, and we were being dumb, drinking a couple of beers, and we were stealing Christmas lights and as a joke, and reindeer, and wire reindeer and stuff. And we went and put it in the store parking lot that was closed, like a big herd of deer. It's not like we were trying to hide them or anything, whatever. So we got pulled over, and they asked me if I was stealing lights, and we said no. And then I opened the glove box, and the lights came rolling out. So like, well, yeah, you got us. So we didn't get in trouble. They just told us to go home, quit terrorizing the neighborhood. And but I got in a lot of trouble from my parents, and the cops said we had to pay the money back, which I don't think anybody ever did. But that was like the first time I ever had the thought of suicide, and because I didn't have the money, I didn't want to pay it back. I was like, and then I told one buddy of mine at school, one of them that was with me. He asked me if I was going to pay the money back. I was like, man, I'm not even going to be here. I ain't worried about that money. But he didn't catch on to it, and so that was like the first thought I had of it. But I didn't have a plan. I didn't have, it was just a thought at that point. And then so man, I was grounded for like ever. And but New Year's was coming, Christmas happened, and New Year's was coming, and my buddies were, uh wanting to go party and drink, and they had, man, we're gonna be here. We can give our parents this phone number, but we're gonna be over here type thing. Well, I talked my parents into letting me be in grounded for the one day for New Year's, and they found out I wasn't where I was supposed to be. The plan didn't work, whatever, whatever. And we were off in the woods, and we went partying, and I parked my truck on this dirt road. Well, it was in a driveway, but it was dirt and long. And anyway, I rode with another friend of mine, and we got drunk and passed out in the truck, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so the next day, it had rained that night. So the next day, my truck was stuck, just like stuck bad. I didn't have a 4-wheel drive truck. So it took half the day to get it out, and it was a whole mess. The inside, everything was messy, and just so when I got home, I got in a lot of trouble, and my parents said they had the cops looking for me that night and all kind of stuff. And part of my punishment was I had to wash the truck, inside, outside, underneath, everything. So and my dad said, and I quote, he said, "I want you to be able to eat off the bottom of the truck. I want it that clean." So anyway, I cleaned it all, and when I was or I was cleaning it all. And when I was underneath the bottom of the truck with the water hose, just I made a decision. I said, I'm done. I'm just miserable, and I said, I was thinking about my friend. I'm like, he has nothing to worry about. His problems are gone. And all this time, for years, my dad's telling me I'm worthless, which I started believing it, which, is a lie from Satan, that he, puts in your head. And uh, I talked to so many people and the lies are all the same. He doesn't have any new tricks. It's all, I'm worthless. They're better off without me. I'm a waste of space, everything to that effect. And, but he's so slick about it. He uses our own voice to tell us this thing. So we believe it. And it's like, just the things he was saying, man, it was just, you know, I couldn't have a thought that wasn't about that, but it was making me happy because I don't know, it just kept being a better and better idea. That was the lies I was being fed. So anyway, I cleaned up after washing the truck, and my brother had a shotgun. I didn't have a shotgun. I had other guns, but so I went in his room. He wasn't home, and I grabbed a 12 gauge buckshot shotgun shell, and I put it next to my TV. And like I said, this is January 1st, and my friend killed himself on January 8th. So I was like, well, I'll just wait 7 days, on the anniversary of his death, and I'll kill myself, and uh, it's crazy because I couldn't wait for the day. I was excited about it. If that doesn't make any sense, you know. But I was just ready to not be the problem. You know what I mean? And so the day came, and I was in the living room watching a movie, and my mom was here, my dad and brother were gone, and so like I needed her out of the house. So I told her to take the dog outside, out in the back, whatever. So she took the dog outside. As soon as she went outside, I ran to the back of the house and I grabbed his gun. And I had grabbed the shell. And I went in the bathroom. And our bathroom, the way it's set up, there's two doors. The first one locks. There's a sink in the closet, and then you got the other one with another lock with the toilet and the bathtub. So I had two locked doors in between me, and there's no way they can get to me, before I die, right? If something happens. So I loaded the gun, I sat on the toilet, and I put it under my chin right there. And I said on the count of three, I'm out of here. And I don't remember saying three. I said one, two, and then I pulled the trigger. And I don't remember anything for 2 weeks, but they said that I got back up and I walked back in the living room and I sat back where I was and was like facing the TV. But I wasn't just looking at it, I was kind of down. Anyway, my mom came in the house and she said, she freaked out, of course, and she's an RN by trade, so thank God of that. She was able to keep her composure long enough to, call 911 and all that. But 911 was busy. She had to call back like 5 times, and she finally got a hold to him, and she said that like this whole part of my face was just gone, you know, the way all of that.
How many surgeries have you had?
I've had 54 to this day,
54 surgeries. Amazing.
and so I can only imagine what my house looked like. I'm sure it was just like my buddies with all the cops and ambulances and everybody in the streets and and just chaos, and but the difference is, I had a helicopter waiting right down the road at the church. And so they flew me to Beaumont, Texas, which is like 30 miles away. And they got me there and I've even talked to ambulance the helicopter people and nurses that worked on me that night, and they said that I was unrecognizable as a human. and that, my head was about the size of a basketball.
Mm.
They actually, this is a big, pretty big hospital, and they didn't have the ability to fix me and do what they needed to do to keep me stable. So they put me back in the helicopter, and they flew me to Galveston, Texas, and that's where I stayed for a couple months and had a lot of surgeries. So anyway, I can't remember, it's either 18 or 21 hour surgery to get me back right halfway, whatever. And so they did all that and kept me, and um I don't remember anything. I was communicating the whole time, even in the helicopter. I was writing notes, trying to communicate. And I when I started remembering, I was strapped down to the bed because obviously I'm a danger to myself. And they had me in a suicide room where the whole left wall was glass, and they had a nurse sitting on the outside, and just everybody who walked by could see me, whatever. And so anyway, I looked in the bathroom, and I could see the mirror, but my parents had taped those paper towels, the brown paper towels, and they put those all over the mirror. And so I'm writing my mom notes, why y'all have that on the mirror? And she said, "We don't want you to see what you did, whatever, whatever." So, you know, it's just like any parent would say, "Don't touch that," and I got to touch it. I've got to see what I did, and so I'm writing to her, undo me, unstrap me, let me go in there, and she was saying no, and I'm like, yeah, just I've got to see it, it's me, whatever. So anyway, she did, and I made my way in there, and when I took the papers off the mirror, I was just like, just whoa, just I was dumbfounded, and it was just I had packing in there. I took it out, and which they had already done surgery there and closed up a lot of the things that were, just torn up, and but when I saw it, it was like from right here all the way down to like here, and then all this was just it was just it wasn't there. It was just deep cavity of just
Mm.
mess. Okay. I had my mouth closed like this, and I turned like that, and I could see my teeth over here through my jaw. And I was just like, oh my God. Just
That
like,
had to be so traumatizing for you. So tell me about that road to recovery, both I imagine physical as well as emotional recovery. What helped you? Because I imagine under those circumstances, it had to be quite depressing.
yeah, well, when I first woke up, I didn't wake up. I always say woke up. I just didn't remember. When I first started remembering, the first thought I had was that I was a failure. It was like, wow, you can't do that, right? Who can't kill themselves with a shotgun? And but after that thought, it was like, well, here I am. Now I have to deal with this. And when I was looking in the mirror, it was just like that. I was thinking, all the problems that I thought I had just were diminished. I just created a million new ones. And they're not gonna go away. And it's just I had to deal with all kinds of stuff like that. Just the thought of never finding a girlfriend, the thought of never being accepted in society, never being, there's so much that people wouldn't think about when something like that happens to you that there's just never thought, and it's just craziness. But I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't speak. I could just write, and I'm not gonna write all that stuff, and psych never came in. My mom was an RN, so she charted every day when I was in the hospital, in books, and psych didn't come in for at least a month, I would say, at least. It is just so I just had God to talk to, and it was just me and Him, and I talked to Him a lot, and because I was a Christian, I didn't understand hardly any of it. I understood that God loved us and He was always there for us, and that was really about it,
So the
and
spiritual faith was a big part of that for you. The faith helped you cope.
yeah, the faith helped me in everything. It just that's all I had, I mean, I didn't know what else to do, I didn't know who to ask. I wasn't gonna ask anybody, and so me and him had a lot of talks, and I mean, I asked him, why he saved me, and he gave me an answer, and so well, I know there's a reason, and I'm gonna keep asking you every day until I get an answer. So I uh I had to make a decision in the hospital. I have two options. I can either, live the rest of my life indoors, and just hide from everybody, or I can live like it never happened. So I chose to live like it never happened, and uh, I'm glad I did. I can't. I've got to be me. I can't stay in the house all the time. Like I said, I'm ADHD. I'm hyperactive. I can't be locked in the house. But so I got out of the hospital after. Oh wait, I had I had a surgery right after I started remembering. That was a 25.5 hour surgery. They did a lot of stuff, but anyway, the hospital was all full. Uh, I came out of the surgery room and my lung collapsed, and they said I was about to die. I was in the recovery room when all this was happening, and they couldn't wheel me back in the surgery because there wasn't room. And the one I had just been in, they couldn't throw me back in there because there's old blood everywhere. They had to clean it first. So they're in there trying to work on me and whatever, and trying to keep me awake. And I felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest, and I just wanted to go to sleep. And the nurse was like sitting right by my bed, shaking me. She's like, "You gotta wake up. If you fall asleep, you're gonna die." And I remember I fought with everything I had, every ounce of everything to stay awake and to fight and live. And it makes me think, 2 weeks prior to this, I was had a shotgun under my chin, trying to do everything I could to kill myself. And it goes to show you that that spirit was gone. You know. Mhm. So anyway, they fixed me up, put some tubes in my chest and all that, and then I was got better, whatever. Yeah. So I went home, and I didn't go back to school because it's almost the end of the year. I got a homebound teacher, and but the next year was my senior year. I went back to school, and I looked a wreck. I looked a mess. I had a big old, like, my nose is my forehead, and it was still connected, and it was just weird. And I had a big old bar that went all the way across. It was bolted in my had two bolts on each side. I had a trach. I had tubes hanging out my stomach. But I didn't care. I wanted my face was a mess. I didn't have an eye. And but I wanted to get back to normality. I wanted to get back to school and just get back to routine, and you know what I mean. So I went back to school, and it was kind of rough. You know, for the most part, everybody was cool. There's a lot of people. Some people, snickered and pointed, and talking when I went by, just things like that. But it happens. But I didn't let it bother me. I act like I didn't even hear it. I just would walk with my chest up, my head up, and act like it never happened. And keep going. And that's how I
So
lived, and I had to.
what
So
what advice would you have for someone who is suicidal?
get close to Jesus as close as you can. Have a personal relationship with Him, and read the Bible over and over and over and over and over and over. If you've read it 1,000 times, you haven't read it enough. Because I mean, that's our salvation. That's our peace. That's how we communicate with God. And because the suicide thing and the depression, all that is spiritual, and the only way to fight it is spiritually, and we're gonna have God for that.
What types of things have you done since your suicide attempt to reach people who are suicidal?
Uh, well, uh, about 12 years after all that, after I went through a bunch of drugs and got married and had a kid, and um, I was working, and I got in a wreck after work, a bad wreck with 18 wheeler, 80 miles an hour. My truck flipped 5 times, caught on fire, and all this. So anyway, I went home. I didn't go to the hospital, and I had a violent seizure about a week later, and I broke both my shoulders. I tensed up so much they just broke. And it was at that point where I wasn't mad at God, but I was frustrated. And so I had been asking him every day why he saved me without an answer. And on this day, I was frustrated with him because I didn't understand how my truck was gone, my job was gone. I can't use my arms. I can't. I have a family. What am I supposed to do? You know. So I said, God, what the blankety blank did you save me for? I know it ain't this and blah 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 blah. And I wasn't expecting an answer, but I got an answer, and it was a loud. It was a big voice. It wasn't like it was loud, but he wasn't yelling at me. It was just. It sounded like it came from like the air, like from the ceiling on the right side of me, but it was it had great authority. I knew exactly who it was. There was no doubt. And he said, "I want you to help people with suicide." And I said, "No." And so he told me a couple more times, like, "Yeah, you're gonna help you with suicides and talk to people and share your story." I'm like, "No, So I'm sitting here arguing with God. He's talking to me like out loud. And so I told him no a couple more times, and I said, "You got the wrong one." I said, "And I'm not like that. I can't do that. I'm not. I don't want to get up in front of people or talk, or I'm not that way." And he said, "I created you. That's who you are." And I just stopped, and I was like, what do you say to that? So I told him no again. So I said, "Well, if you really want me to do that, give me confirmation." So all I could hear in my head was just help people, help people, help people, like a broken record. And so I couldn't stand it. So I said, "Okay, I'll do it, fine." And when I told him I would do it, it was like everything that I didn't understand about my life. I understood, and why things happened and why they happened this way. And all the way down to my mom's conception when she was on birth control, you know, I was, God put me in there for such a time as this, and I didn't understand it then, but it was like my life was a wreck. It was all kind of different things that never made sense and I couldn't put together. But after this, it was like they all just came together like a perfect puzzle. It was like,
So you just gained that understanding all at one time, like a
yeah,
download of information where it all made sense.
oh yeah, it was just like wow, it all makes perfect sense. And actually, that helped me to be able to deal with most of it. It was like you know, it wasn't for the reason I thought maybe. And so anyway, I started helping people, and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know where to go, so I just went to Beaumont, and they have a rape and crisis suicide center. That like a hotline center. So I went in there, and they said I could volunteer, and so I did that, and I jumped in knee deep, and it was almost too much, and I was doing it like 5 days a week from midnight to 6 a.m. The shift nobody wanted. And it was a lot. But I wasn't ready spiritually, to take on that much, but I did, and it was weird because they didn't want me to stay on the phone very long, just like maybe 5 minutes. Wanted me to give them some information, some resources, and get off the phone. Well, I didn't go by their rules. I stayed on the phone sometimes 3 hours, with people. I don't believe you can help somebody in that amount of time. And I mean, at first they gave me a little trouble, but then they kind of said, "Well, he's gonna do it anyway." So.
Mm.
So I know those papers I had to fill out. I'd quit filling those out. It's like, look, they're not numbers, they're people. Let me just, you know, and they were fine with that, and they said just do what you got to do. And So I did that for a couple years, and it started becoming too much because I mean I was going to church, but I was pouring out more than I was taking in, and so I stepped back from taking the calls, and I was going to church like 6 days a week, and I was getting surgeries on my shoulders. Well, I get one fixed and the other one break, and I get it fixed and this one break, and it was just a whole mess. 'Cause I was still having seizures, and it was just, and I couldn't work. And but God was faithful. He was taking care of everything I needed. I didn't have to ask anybody for anything. Bills were paid. I just praised God. And this went on for like 6 years, and like I've had this one operated on twice, and this one is actually broke for the fifth time. And it needs another surgery, but it's so torn up they really can't put it back together. But like, see it sticking out. That's like metal sticking out right there. But anyway, so I I'm going to church 6 days a week. My father-in-law said I need to go back to work, so he opens a business and he says I can run it. It's bounce houses, though, blow up things where kids jump in them, that and water slides, stuff like that. And it pulled me out of church. I was ended up working 7 days a week, and I thought it was a blessing, but it was a curse. I We got back on the drugs in a bad way, and I was selling dope, cooking dope, and that was for 3 years. I held the job, and anyway, they ended up selling it, and it wasn't my fault. They got divorced, and they sold the business. So, but so after all that, I was doing bad stuff. CPS kept coming in my life, and so we would drink bleach and orange juice to clean ourselves out so we could keep our kids, and it was just a wreck. So they kept coming, and you know, the last time they came, we wouldn't answer the door because we were in trouble. We were doing bad stuff, and so if we answered the door, it's our own fault. So they just kept coming back. I'm like, they're not going to go away. They're going to keep coming back. And so they came back again, and they left a note on the door saying that they're coming back Tuesday with the cops. It was like Thursday, and so I'm like, it's over. We're done. It's the end of our rope. We've got to stop. So I stopped, and like we were shooting up, and we had the dope house. It was just a wreck. So my wife couldn't quit, and they came back. Uh, they swabbed our mouths, for drugs, and which I didn't trust it. And they said mine came back positive, and hers came back inconclusive, and I wasn't accepting that. I knew I hadn't had drugs. Anyway, so I demanded a urinalysis, and they wouldn't give me one. So I kept asking, and they're refusing. And so you don't understand. I said those are my kids. I know I'm clean. I said I'm fixing the kitchen in there has cups in it. I'm fixing to pee in one. You're taking it with you. And it's like we can't do that. And I said, well, you gotta do something. This is little popsicle on a stick is not gonna work for me. And so the next day we went and took a urinalysis, and I passed and she failed. So I had to take the kids out of there. So she went downhill. We split up, and she ended up going to prison. And I thought I was doing good because I quit dope, but I started drinking, and it was just a whole mess. And uh, I ended up after 8 months of being sober I wasn't sober. I wasn't on dope. Okay, and after 8 months of not being on that, I relapsed one night after some stuff happened at a job I had, and it was bad. I had my son in a different state, which I live on the border, so it's like 5 minutes away. I'm in a different state, so but I'm in a different state. I have my son with me. He's like 5 or 6, and I just shoot up like $100 worth of dope, and I'm just it's too much. So I was outside trying to, because I was hot. Anyway, the cops walked up behind me, and I was texting somebody, and I had drugs in my pocket, and it was over with. I was in jail, and I had a girlfriend. That's where I was over there. Cause me and my wife were. I wouldn't get back with her. She was in prison, and it was a whole ordeal. Anyway, so I'm in jail in a different state. This girl I barely knows got my son. I don't know what she's doing with him. I can't talk to anybody, and it's like you pushed it too far. You got a felony. And it's just you couldn't stop. You couldn't resist. So, which God had told me, 8 months prior when I was drinking to get ready and prepare myself, and I didn't do it. I was kind of being cocky, because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But there's a lot more behind that. You gotta actually be walking the walk. and
Mm.
but so anyway, he took his hand off of me probably about 30 seconds, and I put myself in jail. And I was just angry at the world. I was angry at myself. And a guy was in there, and this jail was old. I couldn't see anybody. There's only like 12 cells in the whole jail. It's built like in the 1800s. They still had keys this big. So I could just see the bars. Anyway, they gave me the nickname C4 because I blew up on everybody in there. Just yeah, somebody said something, just I was mad. So he held a Bible through the bars, and he said, "You want this?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." So he slid it to me, and that was, man, I found my salvation. Like truly found where I was supposed to be. And I I stayed in the Bible 16 hours a day, and I was locked up uh for 60 days, and I stayed in there. He gave it to me on like the second or third day I was in there. So the entire time I read it, and if I used it as a tool. If I woke up and I was angry, instead of staying angry, I would wake up and I would get up and I would go read the Bible, and it would put me in a better mood. If I woke up, I was crying, missing my kids, instead of feeling those feelings, I would get in the Word and let God change my feelings. And I learned how to do that, and I kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it every day, all day. I had to all day, or else I was locked up. I was, miserable. I was isolated. You know, I would have, if I hadn't have been reading, I would have just, in isolation. That's the devil's playground. He just sitting there beat me up and beat me up, and I wasn't gonna last.
Mm.
You know, so I was fighting the spiritual battle in there the whole time. So that's where I learned the importance of God's word. I knew it, but I knew it was important before, but I didn't understand the importance of it and the power it had. So I get out, and she had got out and sold my truck and got me out. I didn't know how I was getting out. They said I was looking at 5 years, and I'm like, five? I can't do 5. I can't do 5 years. That's not me. So I'm praying and praying, and when I go to court, and I'm continuing to read the Bible when I got out. It was a few months later, about 6 months later, I went to court, and my wife's doing the same thing. She's reading, she's doing good, and because she just got out. So I went to court, and I had a methamphetamine charge and a weed charge, both distribution and manufacturing, which were lies. I was by myself. I just had a little crumb, and it had like $10 worth of weed in my pocket. So the DA was talking about all these charges, and the judge said, "Well, I'm gonna reduce that down to a first offense possession of marijuana." And the DA even spoke up. She's like, "Look, Your Honor, he has had multiple charges, And she's like, "You heard what I said," and hit the gavel and said, "Oh no," he said, "Hey, so you heard what I said," and then he said, "I'm charging you, what do you say, 14 days in jail," and I spent 60 days in there. He said, "But you spent 60 days." I see. He said, "Time served, Mr. Burris." He's like, hit the gavel. He said, "Go home, have a nice day." And I'm just like, what? You
That
know,
was
I-
a miracle.
well, yeah, I had God's favor. Well, he had his hand on me, but he took it off long enough for me to put myself somewhere that I couldn't run around. You know, he slowed me down long enough because he knew I wasn't gonna do it, and, to where I had to prepare myself. You know, he gets what he wants. Actually, he put me in well, he didn't put me in there, I put myself in there, but he got me out. You know, he was doing something, you know?
So do you have a ministry today?
Yes, ma'am. I have a suicide prevention ministry. It's called Suicide Prevention and God's Helpers, but it's not the word "and," it's the ampersand sign. I don't know why I did that, but anyway, God, you know, was pushing a lady to my wife when she got out. She had to go to NA because whatever. So I was going with her, and this lady was there, and I was on Facebook, but I didn't do it a lot. You know, it was me and my wife had a lot of trouble with a lot of stuff back in the day. So anyway, so I was on there, and she's like, "You need to start a group." And I'm like, I don't really get on Facebook that much. I have one, but I don't get on there. She's like, "Yeah, you need to start one." I'm like, "Mm." Anyway, I said, "I'll think about it." So I went home that night, and I was playing around with it, and I made one. And so I was praying about it, and God told me to name it Suicide Prevention and God's Helpers. And I'm like, okay, but I didn't understand, why. So I made the group, and the next day I had 1,800 people in there
In one day?
in one day, and it was just like it took off, and it was like whoa. And so I mean, apparently, God was pushing her to get me to make a group. so so yeah, and it got like between my page, I have a page in a group of the same name, and my wall, my personal wall, which I use, to help people as well. I have like 15,000 people on there, so it's pretty constant. But I have a great team of admins that do a lot, and they really have a heart to get out of their own way and help people. Even if they're struggling with things. So I have
Wow, you have a pretty amazing story in terms of overcoming all that hardship and adversity, and still taking a very bad situation and turning it around and helping other people, which I think is the name of the game. That's why we're all here, right?
hmm You got to turn the bad into good.
Exactly. So have you ever thought about like have you done YouTube videos about your story?
Yeah, there's a few YouTube videos out there that I've done with people, and I might have done some on my own. I don't know, but I got a few TikTok videos. I'm not too big on the video thing unless somebody's doing one like this because to me it's kind of like talking to an answer machine. you know, what I'm saying?
I got it.
It's just kind of weird. But I got to get past all that. But so
Yeah.
but,
Well, our idea is to do a documentary because I think that suicide now is becoming a epidemic, and something has to happen to bring awareness and to offer hope, right? And suicide is people just see one way out, and it's just a black hole. And so I think stories like yours offer people hope that in spite of all these adversities, you were still able to turn it around. And um, so that's what it's all about, is just having that hope, right? Sometimes it seems like a hopeless situation. I work in a jail setting where we do suicide watches all the time, but in the community, who is there, right? So, and there really aren't that many options. As I was telling Annie and Stephen, the only options are the suicide prevention line, the hospital, or the morgue,
yeah,
right? There's no safety net in society, which is very tragic. I think there needs to be a lot more resources that can really, in a time of need, because the hospitals oftentimes they're just flooded,
yeah,
and unless you've actually made a suicide attempt, sometimes they're not going to intervene.
yeah. And I think I think there needs to be at least one or two suicide counselors at every school. You know, even in the like elementary, or intermediate. Uh, I've talked to a bunch of kids, unfortunately, that are 10 years old, 12, 9 years old. Uh, I just went and talked to a 14-year-old the other day. And it's Satan's trying to get our youth. And it's bullying has a lot to do with it, but with the youth today, uh, it doesn't take much for them to think their whole world's crashing. And it's a little different than we were growing up. We would just, get told rough and
Yeah.
dirty, and go about your day. These kids are really having trouble, dealing with it. And
There's
it's
so many influences today with the internet and cyberbullying, and the pandemic itself has created just a whole slew of problems
hmm
with the isolation, and just a different society now than what it was years ago.
yeah, definitely is. Definitely is.
So, a- any last thoughts about, your message or about your experience?
Do what?
Any last message that you want to put out there as far as your experience?
Just a couple things that I'd like to touch on is forgiveness is real, and God forgives us, and we have got to forgive ourselves in life, because we're with ourselves more than anybody else ever in the world. But the thing is, we fight ourselves more than anybody else in this world. And we gotta love ourselves and forgive ourselves.
Mm.
The other
What
thing,
type of relationship do you have right now with your father?
oh,
Is he still alive?
he's alive. He lives about 5 miles down the road, but I don't ever talk to him. I haven't talked to him in over 10 years. So it's what it is.
Too much pain there, right? Very toxic, very toxic.
Well,
Seems like he,
I forgave him, and as it's just water on the bridge. I'm not gonna. Forgiveness is for me anyway. I can't. I'm not gonna let him destroy my life by unforgiveness. Or harboring hate or something like that. But
good for
yeah,
you. Good for you. It takes a very big heart to be able to do that, given the things that you experienced, right? So much emotional pain growing up. So
mm,
unfair to have been subjected to all that abuse.
yeah, it takes
Okay.
a whole lot. But the only other thing I was gonna talk about is isolation. Uh, People gotta quit isolating themselves. That's the worst possible thing they can do. You know, um, I speak about this, and it's like, and I tell them, if you do something wrong, you go to jail. If you do something wrong in jail, where they put you? In isolation. If you kill somebody, you're on death row. You're in isolation all day long. And what does that do to people? They're just tormented, and they just go crazy, and they can't handle themselves. You're not meant to be in isolation. You're meant to be around people out and um, and we think that's something that Satan's lied to us for so long that when something happens, everybody wants to run. And when they run, Satan's got you by himself. It's just you and him. And so I just don't understand why so many people voluntarily put themselves in the worst possible place they can be and think it's their safe place. So
That's a good point. Good point. But sometimes, unfortunately, the only people that they have are ones that are toxic in their lives, like your father was to you. They don't,
reach out.
they're
Get on
not
Facebook, get
in
some friends.
environments that could be supportive.
Use Facebook. I've met so many good people on Facebook that I talk to. I mean, it's you can find somebody. I mean, just don't. That's torturing yourself. I I'm an empath. I can't. I've felt it before. I don't want people to feel like that. It's just reach out. There's people out there that are going through the same stuff, but you don't know it because you hadn't said nothing. There's more than you think out there. So
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience.